Hi, everyone. My name's Derek Covington Smith, and I'm going to be your host for Spotlight On. Spotlight On is an interview podcast where we talk to different artists working and living in Mississippi. When I moved back to Mississippi, I opened up my studio, the Little Yellow Building, and began teaching. And once the coronavirus hit and really settled in, it became quite lonely. As artists, we're always used to having a lonely studio practice and being one-on-one with ourselves. But when you take out the option of having that community, it becomes really hard. And that's where Spotlight On was born. I started reaching out to artists all over Mississippi and interviewing and learning more about their lives. I'd like to invite you to come along and join me as we talk to everyone and anyone who wants to share their art and their life with us. So I hope you tune in, I hope you subscribe, and join us for Spotlight On. And we are now recording. Hey everyone, welcome back to Spotlight On. We are here this week with Nicolette Brokaw. She is a photographer out of Vicksburg, Mississippi, and she was one of the artists that we were lucky enough to feature in our Hope exhibition back in November. We are recording this in December, and you will be listening to this in late January. So welcome. Nicolette, thank you for being on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in art in general?
So if my mom tells you this story, she'll say I started at a very young age when I kept coloring my little training potty. I colored it all the time. Every time she wiped it off, I'd go back and I'd color it again. Art has always been a part of my life in some form or another. I was really into an art class when I was in high school. I've always enjoyed being creative and, just trying a little bit of everything. I found photography, several years ago now. I was at a point in my life where I didn't know really what I was put on this earth to do. I think we kind of all go through that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to take this photography class and just have fun. And just, maybe it'll be a hobby. Who knows? And it kind of went from there. I had an amazing teacher at Hines in Raymond. Shout out to Mr. Minton. He kind of opened my eyes and kind of unlocked something that had always been there. And I kind of ran with it from there. I'm sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, that wasn't long at all. That was perfect. So when you went through Hines, were you taking many art classes or just a few? Or? Well,
my major at that time was going to be psychology. What was I going to do with a psychology degree? Because I don't want to be a psychologist. I don't know. I'd always wanted to work with animals. I've been a big animal lover since day one. Always said I was going to be a vet. And, I just realized it just wasn't the path that was meant for me. And, now I photograph my animals. So that's, how I involve them. But, I forgot what the question was. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I haven't had coffee yet. Excuse me.
It's warm. Yeah, we're here in the morning. I'm not a very big morning person either. It takes me a long time to wake up and get going. Your Instagram is how I mostly know you and how I've been able to interact with you. And that is tons of photos of you and your children and these adventures that you go on and these really beautiful, special moments. Is that something that you like to focus on with your photography in general? Or is that just kind of where you are right now?
I think it's kind of where I'm at right now. Before I became a mom, I was doing some may say odd, photo shoots. I mean, my neighbor saw me set Barbie dolls on fire in my front yard. So, I like to make my photographs noticeable. So, I guess I was just tired of seeing everything so ordinary, and I've always wanted to be extraordinary. So I was like, so what can I do that's going to push the envelope and maybe open some eyes on some real issues? During quarantine, I did a emotional abuse project. It's something I've always had tinkering up here. And, there's a lot of ideas that swirl around up there. And, I just have to find the right time to pull them out and execute them. And, I learned very quickly that not every project's going to work when you want it to work, if that makes sense. And that's a project you'll see. I submitted some work for the next exhibition. But I kind of like pushing envelopes a little bit. There was a frame shop here in Vicksburg, and I would take my stuff in to get framed. And the girl looked at me one day and she's like, "This doesn't look like you did this." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "It's so dark and, it's dark and twisty, for a lack of a better word. And you just don't look that way on the outside." And I was like, well, looks can always be deceiving. I think I tap into a more emotional side because I really want to invoke some type of thought process, some type of emotion. I really just want the viewer to take something with it. And I always say, there's a piece of me hidden in each one. So this may have been something I've gone through or something I've witnessed someone close to me go through, which I don't like to get too personal. But yeah, to sum up that long spiel I just did.
Well, feel free to share whatever you're comfortable with, because this whole experience and what we're trying to do here is to flesh out the human element behind all the artists. Because you're right, when you walk into a frame shop or when you walk into some place with your art, if they were to see your art by itself, they would have thought nothing about it. But because you brought it in, they're like, this doesn't look like you. And everyone forgets that there's so much dimension to each individual person, and the looks and what we're presenting is more of a shield than it is anything else when we go out into the world. So the fact that I don't look like I'm disturbed is pretty much put on just to please you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the submissions that you did for the 21 show, which is going to be on view at this point. I really enjoyed every single submission you submitted. It was so different from what you did last time. And it made me, I've got goosebumps talking about it, because the photo that you did for Hope, the photography you submitted for Hope, came together better for me when you submitted your statement along with it. And I was like, oh, that's good. You put this statement of loss with this innocence of the photograph, and it made so much of an impact for me. And then with this time go round, I opened up your entries, and the photographs stood on their own so well. And that was so exciting to see. I loved that part of it. It was different than anything I've ever seen from you, because I've not known you that long.
Yeah.
And getting to see this other
just wait,
part.
There's more.
That's thrilling. Like, how thrilling is that? There's getting to know all of you is been such a fantastic experience, because each one of you have this different life story to tell and these different points of view. And that's important to me. It's important that people get to experience that from you. Tell me about your day to day. So when do you get to, you told me you work at a hotel. When do you fit in all your photography time?
So a lot of it is done with my son. I work an evening shift, so I only have, when he wakes up to when he goes down for his nap. And so it's important to me to make that really good quality time between me and him. Because, the mom guilt, the working mom guilt, I feel like I'm always leaving him. So I tell him, let's go on an adventure and let's go shoot some photos. And he's not even 2 yet, so he really doesn't understand. But I hope as he gets older, I can say, let's go on an adventure. Let's go find something. And that'll be something that me and him can share together. And I hope and pray he'll be my little prodigy and, take it further than I'll ever be able to take it. And hopefully that's, pretty far. But anyway, I like being spontaneous. Like I used to plan every single photo shoot, and that's when, only my mom really looked at it, and my husband and, his family. But, I get up in the mornings, it's changing diapers and, getting breakfast and feeding the dogs and, all that day-to-day stuff. So I like to schedule a little bit of time and each day to think about, okay, maybe I'm not shooting today. Maybe I'm trying to figure out what I want to shoot and what's the message I want to get across and how I'm going to do that without being too literal, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense.
In college, I became fascinated with dolls and how they were each unique, especially old antique dolls that you can find at the thrift store. Because I feel like each of those has a story with them and themselves. And I found this really spooky, it was like a Day of the Dead doll or something like that. Not Walking Dead. I don't know, some zombie thing. And I saw it and I was like, okay, I can do something with this. And I did. And then it just kind of went from there because my teacher I mentioned, Mr. Minton, he always encouraged me to, okay, this is great, but let's take it a step further and let's dig deeper in there. So long story short, I did a series, I guess a couple years ago. I think I was pregnant when I started it, where I took a Barbie doll just from the dollar store. And I tried to take off all the makeup. I watched a YouTube video, where I wanted her to look more bare. And I took a Sharpie and wrote things that I think we as women have inflicted on us and also inflict on ourselves because there's so much pressure to look a certain way and be a certain size and, all that fun stuff. And so I set the dolls on fire and, did some cool stuff with that and also almost burned off my eyebrows. So because I always want to get closer to my subject, I have to remember oh, wait, I don't want to burn my lens. I can't afford to replace this right now. I hope that answered your question.
So when you sit down to concept and to kind of brainstorm, what's that process like for you?
So it's very sporadic, if that makes any sense. I feel like my brain is just this miniature version of me, and she's juggling all these plates, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, pretty much chaos up there. Some things I take inspiration from people in my life, and certain things I've been through that I want to get more out of, if that makes sense, just pushing it a little bit further. It's very sporadic. It's, there's no rhyme or reason to what makes me think about things. My best friend, before we had kids, I would always drag her out and be like, are you up to be my model today? I need someone to shoot. And I did a battered woman shoot, and I did her makeup to make it look like her face was bruised. And she was like, oh my God, this actually looks real. But she's a good sport. She always is down. You'll see her she's actually the person in the photo with the Okay.
Yeah. That's one of your submissions.
That's her. And that's my husband in the background. And it started out, just, I was thinking about, a woman figure in like a dark room in the corner. And then I was like, oh, wait, I had the shed in the background. So I just like to play around with it because, not everything looks as good as you think it's going to look in your head sometimes. Right. And then and I actually like it when it doesn't go like I planned, because that's when I find something new and a new way of getting my message across.
That's what
and then, COVID. So I didn't have a lot of options like going to places and, using other spaces. So I had to be kind of creative with what I had.
Yeah, you had to be completely creative with your limitations.
Yeah.
That's to when things turn out a little differently than you expected and they don't kind of make it that way. That's for me, that's when the magic happens. That's when I actually find something that sparks in my work, because I'm like, that was the uncontrollable element. And now I just have to judge myself on, is it good? And that's kind of exciting for me when I'm painting and creating myself. So you've gone through and you brainstorm, some of the settings for your photography that you've been talking about is a little bit more elaborate. And then now you're doing a lot more spontaneous, just general setting. How is that mindset different for you from going to, I'm going to plan everything out meticulously, to, let's just let it be a part of my life, and what happens, happens?
I think I owe a lot of that to having my son, because, kids don't really come with a playbook, and, I'm kind of on someone else's schedule. So I lost a little bit of that control. Like, well, I can't go out to the gym, I've got to feed him. And there's, which I don't say that to be like, oh, I got to feed my kid. But, it's what happens when you become a parent. And I think a mom especially, because, we're kind of like have to be the planners. No offense to my husband, but he is not a planner. Bless his heart. It feels right now. I don't know how else to explain that. It's just something I guess I intuitively feel. It may change a month from now, a week from now, but for right now, I'm just going with it, because that's really all you can do in life is just go with things.
Especially right now.
Because if you had told me when I was a little girl that I was going to grow up and I was going to be a photographer and a mom and work at a hotel and, all these different things that I've done, and I would have been like, no way, but that's life,
Do you have any projects that you're currently working on, or anything that you're trying to dive into and develop?
I have an idea in my head. It's just getting it out. I really want to touch on, kind of the Black Lives Matter movement. I really want to convey an image that shows unity and compassion, and I guess empathy would be the right word, because I haven't yet. And, everyone has kind of been speaking out on social media, and I haven't. And, it doesn't mean that I don't care. It's just I'd rather let my photographs speak for me. And that's just kind of my process as an artist, and, just figuring out what I want to say, how I want to say it, and when I want to say it. Because in the beginning, there was so much tension, and I mean, rightfully so. And, I didn't want to step on anyone's toes or anything like that. I think we have to be really sensitive when we approach such hot topic subjects, especially right now. But I have that tinkering up there. Hasn't made its way out behind the lens yet, but it's getting there. It's just, like I said, it's just kind of spontaneity at this point. when I
sometimes
feel it's right to shoot.
yeah, sometimes those bigger, more complex ideas that, especially when you know that when you put it out into the world, it has a lot to do with everyone else, not just yourself. Those are ideas that sometimes take a long time to come to fruition, simply because you have a lot of things that you're balancing there. You're balancing respect, you're balancing compassion, you're balancing rage, you're balancing all of these things that hopefully will touch on all the right marks that you need it to, without, because the other thing that I've seen that's really upset me with some, I'm not even going to say artists, just people in general, is the abuse of influencers or people with social media platforms jumping on board and pushing some ignorant version of the message because they think it's a platform to be seen on. And especially with people who are not of color and people who are, we're here to support and we're here to be allies, and we're not here to get our faces seen. So finding that balancing act of, how do I express my art and get it out there so it can, hopefully positively affect people, but at the same time, make sure it's other people's stories. And I'm not trying to take that from them and use it for myself, but I'm trying to just highlight. Like, that's complex. All of that's so complex. I've not been able to deal with that in my art yet either. I've kind of sat back and just absorbed everything that's been going on.
And, I think it would be different if I was a person of color and had like a personal experience, but I'm not a person of color, and I don't want to disrespect anybody in any type of way. Like I said, it's just a sensitive topic right now. And, I don't want it to seem like, oh, here's this white lady thinking she has a, experience she doesn't have. And that's not my intention at all. I just want to bring awareness. And like I said, I want to convey in some type of way unity. That, at the end of the day, you're a person, I'm a person. It doesn't matter if we're black, white, purple, pink with yellow polka dots, And that's just, it's up there. It's, like I said, I have an idea right now, and I'm like, how can I push it further? So we will see. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. So for anyone that's listening that might want to get into photography or just make a leap in general, is there any advice that you'd have for them?
Be ready to fail. Be ready for people to be confused by you and not really understand what you're doing. Be ready for all the no's, but eventually someone's going to say yes. And someone is going to notice and be like, okay, you got something there. And let's run with it. Like I said, I started out my life not thinking I'd ever be a photographer. And, I'm really happy because, behind my camera, I found myself. I saw the world in a different way. And, you just got to go for it. I've gotten the crazy looks and why don't you just take pictures of trees, and why don't you just do and there's nothing wrong with people that take pictures of trees, but that's not me. I've always wanted there to be a deeper message. And, sometimes I do take pictures of animals and stuff like that. But I've always had this other side to me, this complex side that I wanted to show. My goal one day is to be in a gallery in New York. That is if I don't accomplish that, that's fine, but that is my big thing. That's going to be the moment where, I made it. I did this, just a nobody from Vicksburg, Mississippi. And, that's not that that's going to make me a somebody, because I used to think it would, but, after being a mom, I told my husband if I'd never accomplish anything else, he is my biggest and greatest accomplishment, and he always will be. And, he's my little subject now. He's my little model. So, if Target wants to use him for an ad, I'm so down.
Well, if Target is listening, please, by all means, get in touch.
Look at my Instagram. He needs to be a model.
Speaking of, by the way, go ahead and drop your Instagram for everybody now that we just kind of...
Yeah, it is at Nick Loves Will, and don't laugh. I don't have like a Nicolette Brokaw photography. I created Instagram when Instagram was, pretty new, or created my Instagram. So I've thought about changing it, and I was like, it's kind of quirky, so I'm just going to go with it. But yeah, anyone who wants to get into photography, just do it. There's a lot of trial and error. I started out with a 35 millimeter camera in the dark room, not knowing what I was doing. But you learn, and, some things didn't turn out the way I wanted them to, but then, that kind of sprouts another idea. I think of me as like a tree trunk, and, I have all these different branches that kind of sprout up, and, it just, if that makes any sense, I don't know, kind of rambling here.
It makes good sense to me.
I just go for it. That's really the only advice. You don't have to have the fanciest equipment. You don't have to have the most high tech, lenses and all this. You just go with it, because, when I'm taking pictures and I'm not thinking about the technical aspect, I'm just feeling it and hoping that shows through the picture, if that makes sense. Like, obviously there's a technical behind it, but, there's also just the, when a painter, they look at a painting, they go with what they feel. You paint what you feel, you paint what you know. And, I just feel like I have to do that through the lens, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
It's developing that instinct and having that artist's eye. The compositions on your photographs, you like a lot of zoomed in, kind of up close and personal and intimate photography. And you follow, third rules of composition, where they're kind of off center and then nobody's ever just directly in, and
that was a big no-no for Mr. Minton. He was like, don't put them smack in the center. Have them off center. Have them over here. What's in the background? Get closer. And that's always in my head now when I'm shooting. Get closer, Nicolette. Get closer. Also, trying not to
burn your eyebrows off.
Yeah.
But all of that it layers together. And after you've practiced it and you've been working in your artistry for so long, it becomes that second nature where you're like, yes, I need to get closer. You're not even thinking about why. You just know that this picture is going to look better this way. So it doesn't always have to do with all of the technical nitty gritty. I need this paintbrush. I need this lens. I need this camera body. And really, you just need a good, strong point of view.
Yeah. My teacher always told me, it's not about the camera. It's about who's behind the camera. And I've just taken that to heart. And, I had someone tell me one time, oh, you need to be shooting with this. And, I'm like, yeah, I would like to, but, I also have responsibilities, and I can't just go out and buy a $5,000 camera body. I have to, especially when I became a mom, like I was in the process of saving for a camera, and then, priorities change. That just kind of happens in life. And, I don't have the most high-tech camera. I have a Canon T6i, and it's great. And it has gotten me to this point. Now I'm currently saving up again, and hopefully I don't get pregnant again right now. I have to use that. But, it's just, it'll happen when it's meant to happen,
Wonderful, wonderful words of advice. Nicolette, thank you so much for being here with us. I want to run through your Instagram is Nick Loves Will, and that's NICLOVESWILL. Nick Loves Will on Instagram. you are a photographer in Vicksburg. Could someone book you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, just DM me on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook, Nicolette Brokaw Photography. That's more of my, Instagram is more of my artistic side of shooting. And then, Facebook is more of my, where you can see, the Christmas sessions, the Easter minis, stuff like that. So yeah, you can always book me. I'm always happy to do a shoot. I'm always down, and I love it when people have kind of crazy ideas. I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. So yeah, you can always contact me. I think my email is linked to my Facebook page. So yeah, just yell at me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Nicolette Brokaw Photography on Facebook, Nick Loves Will on Instagram. Thank you so much for being with us and joining me and sharing your life experience and your art. And,
thanks for having me.
Everything that you do. For everyone else, we will see you, or you will hear us again next week. We'll talk to you later.